let's talk about Pharrell Williams menswear. And before we look at the show, Anastasia, what do you think about Louis Vuitton in general? What do you think about, let's say, Pharrell Williams, Louis Vuitton? Kind of what are your thoughts on it?
I wouldn't be the expert on discussing that. And if I have to be honest, I very rarely follow Louis Vuitton and what they do. Women's wear, not at all. But menswear, I watch a little bit more. But to be honest, I'm not very excited usually about it. I think Farah did great work for what to do. It's a good continuation of that same logic, with. I'm stuck now. I forgot the name.
Yeah,
Yeah, who had the name?
yeah.
This whole new era of Louis Vuitton, which involves very much the black community, black athletes, black singers, which is great. So, I mean, it caters a specific clientele. To me, it's not particularly innovative, but I didn't know that what you just said is very interesting to me, that he thinks about products, so he might create very interesting shoes and accessories in
Yeah,
general. That can be the
yeah.
case. Yeah. Me usually
I
my
expect him to break
mm,
like all the sales records for Louis Vuitton when he's there because, like I said, he thinks about product. Like that's actually almost all he thinks about. Funny enough, it's kind of like
yeah.
when you look at his Louis Vuitton, the focus is way more about kind of instead of the silhouette, focusing on it. So he goes with like very commonly used silhouettes. And then he just spends all his time focusing on like the materials used and the fabrics used and how the comfortability of the wearer and stuff like that. So if you're okay wearing silhouettes that aren't too innovative,
Mhm.
buying his Louis Vuitton, genuinely you'll probably have like some of the best made clothing
Yeah. What
in
do you
that
think about
category of
that?
like silhouette.
What do you think about the fact that he's approaching it more like a product as a design or silhouettes?
I think honestly it's smart from him because I think that Pharrell is not a classically trained designer. And to
Mm.
come up with like really innovative silhouettes, you kind of have to be because you have to
Yes.
like know about patterns, know how to transform patterns, make new shapes, find your own signatures through experimentation. This is not something that Pharrell's ever going to do. So I think him actually focusing on the product and being like, okay, I'm not that kind of designer. So how do I make the best quality coat or jacket? I think is actually really good. And I've spoken to people, I know people that spend millions on Louis Vuitton per year. Like I
Mhm.
know people personally, and they have told me that when they used to buy Louis Vuitton when Virgil Abloh was there.
Lovely,
So
yeah.
so so to paint the picture, basically what it is, what this person was basically telling me is that when streetwear was huge, like the peak of streetwear, to me, like in terms of hype, is when Supreme collaborated with Louis Vuitton. That was like the peak of
Yes,
streetwear.
true, very true, yeah.
And that was them testing the streetwear market because LVMH has all these brands and none of the brands were catering to that streetwear market. So they, from a business perspective, were like, well, how do we capture some of that streetwear market and make that money that's being made in the streetwear space? So that's why they hired Virgil Abloh. Not to say that he actually did streetwear at Louis Vuitton. I think that Virgil Abloh had really good storytelling through his collections
Of course, of course.
when he was there, to be honest. But that was kind of like the rationale as to why they hired him in the first place. So the general understanding by a lot of Louis Vuitton customers at the time is the focus was more on hype. And streetwear customers are the least educated about fashion, more so than any other customer segment in the whole of fashion. So
Yes.
customers that get into it through streetwear, they don't really know what good quality means. They don't know about like really high quality cashmere. They don't know about like all these different elements. So that's why the quality went down, because Louis Vuitton kind of guessed that they could cut corners and it would be fine because the consumers wouldn't know the difference. And so that's why the quality when Virgil Abloh there wasn't fantastic, but it was still hyped because Virgil Abloh was hyped. But since Pharrell Williams has come in, the storytelling is a lot worse because Pharrell's not really that good at storytelling. The
Yeah.
ideas are a lot worse. The silhouettes are a lot more basic. But the big difference is the price increase and the quality is flawless with Pharrell. And so it just depends on like what you prefer. Would you rather have a Louis Vuitton that has more storytelling and more interesting silhouettes, but the quality is worse? Or would you rather have a designer that, okay, he understands that, he's not going to give you good storytelling, but he spends all his time focusing on product. So then when you buy it, you know that you're getting a really high quality product. So it just depends kind of what you prefer.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, then he's a great fit for, obviously, he's a great fit for Louis Vuitton doing that because it will bring a lot of profit. So, I mean, if you're
Yeah.
product focused, it's.
Yep.
I mean, ideally, you should be able to do both. I mean, you shouldn't try the
Agreed.
storytelling to quality, but I guess product is at the forefront in general. I mean, people would, consumers of Louis Vuitton are happy to have a good product because most of them they're not that risk. They don't take that much of a risk in what they wear. They don't necessarily need very interesting silhouettes. It's more us that would like to see that. So it works. Of course it does. Definitely.
Yeah, Leo says his first few collections. Yeah, the first few Virgil Abloh collections were streetwear, which goes like with my analysis about the fact that that's why they hired him. They're trying to capture that market, and they
Yeah.
realized that none of their brands actually had scope to sell those kind of things. So they needed to just collect that whole market essentially. But as time progressed, you could see that Virgil Abloh kind of the storytelling improved and it became about more than just like streetwear collections. But yeah, that first collection it was like the chest rig stuff and like the different colored pieces, like matching sets. That was very streetwear, like luxurious streetwear, if you want to call it that.
Yeah.
In terms of transitioning a customer into a different purchasing bracket, it is a good case study. Agreed.
Yeah.
I think it's also nice to see new fabrics and classic silhouettes that make something old feel new. Agreed. So that's why with Pharrell, I'm kind of in two minds. In one aspect, I'm like, well, he's not the best designer we're ever going to see. And like, I've accepted we're going to see the same silhouettes every collection because that's not his strong suit. But I also know that if I need a super high quality coat, I can go to LV and buy a really high quality one and know that the quality is like top notch across most other luxury brands because that's what Pharrell's focus is. He even said it, like even I remember when he was first hired at Louis Vuitton, he was doing all those interviews where he was actually saying insightful things before he started kind of just be like, Pharrell, what's the inspiration for the collection? And he's like, God, the Lord above. And it's like, Pharrell, can you actually tell us about the collection and not just say God every 5 minutes? But when he was saying like really insightful things, one of the things that he said was that he wants to make the most luxurious product. And I think he has definitely achieved that because I think like the quality of some of the stuff that he puts out is insane. It really actually is insane. So I think in terms of like that being his promise and that being his message, I'm definitely here for it and I support him in that sense.
Yeah.
Okay, people are saying, actually, I like
Perspective, you're right.
guessing what I'm paying for. Exactly. And that's why I said that I think that
That's
his
true. Of
LV will
course, we agree on that.
excel. Yeah, that's why I think it's going to sell really well. Also, random conversation that has nothing to do with the clothing. They built this sort of like floating house thing that's in the middle of the set. And apparently you can actually order that house. And you can configure it the way you want.
Product.
I have no idea how much that house is going to cost when you order it,
They're
but good
creating
luck.
yeah. I mean, for me, a brand like LV is a very particular case in the fashion world because it caters for like a very elite, kind of
Yeah,
clientele that doesn't necessarily care about fashion as expression, but is more like about status. It's not really quite luxury because you can tell it's not Loro Piana, you can tell it's Louis Vuitton, but somewhere in me disturbs me, but because I love fashion and because I don't like this kind of, we are heading very much into this kind of, very corporate and beautiful quality, but then not lifeless,
or
but like, there is
less
no fantasy in
creativity.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah. And it becomes a little bit dried up like this. But for them, it's fantastic since that clientele definitely exists. It's a little bit elitistic, I mean,
yeah,
fashion in general is like that because fashion is expensive. We're not going to say fashion is something for everybody, but I think you get my point. But on what he does, definitely, I mean, that he insists on quality is a very important thing. I think all creative directors should be very, very careful about that. It destroys everything if the
agreed.
quality is not good. It doesn't deserve. I agree on that 100%. I wouldn't buy something if it's not well constructed and with good material. I wouldn't do it. So yeah.
Agreed. And it's obvious like that's his focus because at every single Pharrell LV show, like you can even see it on the screen, like they always have like trunks. And sometimes he'll like collaborate with people or be like the camouflage on the trunks, but it's like showing you that, oh, my focus of Louis Vuitton is about heritage. That's why every single Pharrell show, you're going to get models like pushing wheelbarrows of trunks all over
Yes.
the set,
Yeah.
it kind of shows. Someone said, I will say his clothes are the most desirable I've ever seen for Louis Vuitton. He is really strong at little details that make a big impact and interesting fabrications. He did a faded LV print I still want. Agreed. I would even say like some of the techniques, like even in this collection, and we'll see it when we look at Vogue Runway and look at the clothes closer, a lot of the looks were kind of inspired by this idea of rain, because they were saying that, you know, Pharrell loves the water, he composes in front of the River Seine, he meditates in front of the River Seine. So he kind of wanted, and it's across the collection actually, there's like, they've used different techniques to mimic rain, whether that's like embroidery on coats, different techniques on bags, different techniques on, there's like a shirt that they've glued all these different crystals on, and like the glue creates this like raindrop effect with the crystals on it that I thought was really cool. So it's like different stuff like that. And like you're saying, Louis Vuitton is not the brand that's going to give us super creative stuff anymore. But if you want really well made things that, and some of the products might have interesting elements, I think like his Louis Vuitton is actually where you should go when we talk about menswear. I also just love that all the footwear. First of all, I think that Pharrell makes amazing bags for men and amazing footwear for men. And one aspect I really love about his Louis Vuitton is the fact that with his menswear, he really focuses on comfort. So he's made a deliberate effort to make sure that with the footwear, it's really comfortable. The insoles are really comfortable, so they have like different gels in the insoles to make it comfortable to wear. And he also focuses on them being really lightweight, so they're not heavy when you're walking around, yet using really luxurious fabrics to make the footwear. So that's also something that I appreciate from him.
Interesting to know that.
Also, Pharrell's amazing at branding the pieces. Whoever does the additionals design and the LV team does their job so well. 100%. And Leah says, of course, there's a choir. But it's the Pharrell show. What do you expect? And there's just something so perfect about his personal aesthetic and the brand, the colors, the materials. Everything is so exacting. Agreed. And I definitely need to get one of the Pharrell Speedies, like the soft leather P9s. I'm like a big fan of those. So yeah, at some point when I can afford it, I'm going to pick up one of those Speedies because I just think it's nice. And it's like, it perfectly captures a certain era of fashion, like the Pharrell Louis Vuitton era. And it's just a nice bag to like carry. It's like quite practical. I hope Giannisson is taking notes that it doesn't have to be a messenger bag. It can be like different kinds of bags also. Let me see what people are saying. The LV hotel experience is coming next. Agreed. That's the new luxury, right? It's like luxury is now experiences. It's no longer just clothing. It's like, we're going to give you the LV hotel and the LV cafe and the LV spa. That's kind of where luxury is going these days.
Yeah.
I have a soft Speedy, but I know the P9 is next level. Yeah, I know. And he focused on the P9s in this collection. Like there was a focus on the P9s in this collection. He calls them like, so Pharrell has this colorway. Let me see if I can find it. It's like this. Okay, I'll put this on the screen. It's like this colorway. So Pharrell calls this like butter soft type of thing. It's like this sort of cream colorway. And anytime you see this, the focus is on like the ultimate softness. So to touch it, it feels like really soft and luxurious. You guys will remember the butter soft sneakers that were supposed to look like they look like the Nike Cortez basically. They're like a rip-off of the Nike Cortez. So that's kind of like the idea. And I do actually really like that because some of the P9s in this collection were like that, the butter soft P9s. So I was like, oh, that's really like cool. Yeah, the reversible bags, I'm going to talk about that when we look at the looks closer. They have to be happy because Nicolas Ghesquière isn't selling clothes. Yeah, I know. To be honest, over the past...
Why is he still there?
Yeah, over the past, I don't know how many years, the menswear has single-handedly kept Louis Vuitton afloat since like Virgil Abloh days. Like the menswear is quite single-handedly keeping that brand afloat. Even the fragrances are being pushed from the menswear side more than the women's wear side. Like if you look at like the fragrance like Lovers that's really selling well, that's from Pharrell. When Pharrell was talking about like this idea of like Lovers, that's not coming from Nicolas Ghesquière. So like even the more commercial things, it's like I don't even know why Nicolas Ghesquière, and they renewed his contract, so he must be doing well, I guess. But we all know that what's selling there is not the women's wear. Outside of like the bags that are like classics, like they've been there before Nicolas Gasquier was there.
I really have no. It's a mystery to me as well. Nicolas
Yeah.
Gasquet is it's a designer. I will never understand his silhouettes. They look like he doesn't know exactly what he want to create. It's another discussion. It's like one of these designers.
Yeah,
I
at Louis
only like
Vuitton,
Claude
definitely.
Balenciaga. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, definitely. No, I think Pharrell's clothing actually sells really well. Like I've actually seen a lot of people wear Pharrell Louis Vuitton clothing. Like the varsity jackets, I've seen those a lot. I've seen a lot of people wear like the coats, a lot of the Pharrell coats. I saw someone the other day wearing a piece from that like collection he did with Nigo, because I remember the whole reference, they were referencing the Sakura stuff. And so there are all these pink colorways. I saw someone wearing one of those recently, actually. So I would say his clothing actually sells a lot. Of course, most luxury brands, what sells are the bags, the perfumes, the footwear, the belts, those kind of
yeah.
things. But sometimes you get designers that just sell clothing like Demna at Balenciaga or like Pharrell or Virgil at Louis Vuitton. So sometimes designers can actually sell clothing. It just depends. The unintelligibility is a feature, not a bug. Yeah, because then the focus just goes into the quality. And so I genuinely appreciate it. I genuinely like, at first, I was like, not the biggest fan of Pharrell's Louis Vuitton because I just thought that the storytelling was terrible. And it's not like that has changed. But
Yeah.
over time, really seeing how high quality his stuff is, and also realizing that really his only focus is just on product, I
Mm.
can appreciate it for what it is. And I can just know moving forward, this is what we're going to get from Pharrell Williams. Like, that's just what we need to expect from these collections. Said every collection is bordering on a collab with Nigo, let's be real. Yeah, especially like the earlier collections, which is why it was kind of like crazy that they just came out and just actually just collaborated on one collection. That was like, okay, like we're no longer even like, there's no speculation anymore. It's just like plain in your face. So yeah. And it's all about heritage. Like he obviously focuses on the damier, the logo. There's like cool elements to it too. So for example, this collection had a lot of like rain themes. So this bag, for example, he kind of wanted to create a fabric that kind of references what would a luxurious waterproof fabric be made out of. So I believe in these bags and in the jackets that had the same fabric, they're 51% silk and 49% nylon, I believe. So I thought that was like really, really cool.
Oh,
And he
interesting.
did that. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. Once again, it's just about product. It's like everything he
Yeah.
touches is luxurious, but it's just about the silhouettes are not crazy. One silhouette I do like from Pharrell though is his flares. He always makes these like slightly flared trousers that he also wears himself. I actually like that silhouette of trouser.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you can even see in the trousers here, it's just like a slight flare. I actually quite like that silhouette. Here you've got the butter soft jacket. These were interesting. He kind of wanted to make these like luxurious cycling shoes. So they're like super low profile, but made with like really high quality fabrics. I was like, imagine buying like ultra expensive Louis Vuitton cycling shoes to actually cycle. That's crazy.
Now, if you're a rich person, how would you cycle?
Potential hot take. Perhaps the quality may be the story. He could be saying you don't have to settle when you can have this. Yeah, agreed. I think my thing though, maybe my standards are just high, but there are designers that can do new silhouettes and quality all in one go.
Yeah.
So it's almost like it feels like Pharrell is doing half of it.
Yeah.
But not that that's necessarily a bad thing, once again. Yeah, once again, focus on quality. I just want to see if we can talk about, yeah, you can see like the sort of silk nylon fabric a lot closer here. I just really want to illustrate like the different techniques that they used to make rain. I believe this was one of the shirts. Yeah, exactly. So this right here is mimicking like rain, but these are actually just crystals hand applied on the shirt to mimic rain. So you've got like all these different things. And I like how they use different techniques to do that, every different way. Also, the bags were reversible. I like how they did reversible bags because a lot of brands like Bottega tried to claim that one of their bags was reversible. And I was like, this is a terrible way to make a reversible bag. But with...
yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember what I'm talking about? Yeah,
Yeah,
but with
yeah.
Louis Vuitton, what they've done is the handles can actually be detached and reattached when you turn it inside out. So it actually looks
Yeah.
like a bag. The inside does look a bit like lining, but it still does actually look like a bag, as opposed to like Bottega, where the other side was just like this, like you should never reverse it this way. Like it doesn't make any sense. So that was really cool to see also. Yeah, it's a nylon Speedy. It's kind of like Cucinelli in terms of the focus on fabrics. Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, it seems like in a way, based on what we talked in the beginning about Dior, he somehow, not somehow, he, without taking much of a risk in terms of innovation, he managed to create clothes and products that are ideal for the consumer. Doesn't want to wear something too innovative, that doesn't feel comfortable, but works on the detail, like, the shirt with the crystals. It's a little small detail. So a customer that
Agreed.
doesn't want to, feel exposed in terms of wearing things that for us are interesting, but for the average consumer with money, they're not. So in that sense, he has achieved that. He has achieved that. He has that customer. So that's why I guess it works so well. There is not much. But I don't know if this is good for fashion or not. And that's another discussion.
I think
How the
it's good in
consumer
the
should
sense
dress.
of like, I think it's good in the sense of pushing brands to take quality more seriously. Because I think
Ah, yeah.
the biggest issue, and like a lot of what I talk about is like how quality is going downhill. Brands don't care anymore. They're cutting corners. So it's good to see when Pharrell came to the brand, he like put his foot down on
Mm.
making sure that he doesn't allow any bad quality products to be released through his own creative direction. I do like that. So I guess in that aspect it's a good thing because it might push different people to be just more focused on quality than before, or that it might get to a point where the customer expectation becomes a certain level of quality that brands can't get away with kind of what they're doing right now.
Yeah, that's a very positive thing. Definitely.
Yeah. I do think it's really smart how he connected the widths of the pants with his new shoe silhouette. So many brands will come out with a shoe and not have the pant opening that goes with it. Agreed. Agreed. And I mean his trousers, sorry, I say trousers, I'm so English. But his
Pants. Yeah.
trousers, it feels so weird for me to say pants, but I know what you
Yeah.
mean.
I also say trousers.
Yeah. But the trousers, I think Pharrell is even like a good model for his own clothing because he a lot of times
Yes.
wears like boots or sneakers with the trousers. And the trousers that he designs at Louis Vuitton, they sit perfectly on the footwear that he wears. So I think it's almost like the perfect advert for like how you can wear a lot of the Louis Vuitton footwear, to be honest. And it's good that he wears a lot of it too.
Yes,
Because
yes.
I think he personally styles Louis Vuitton in a really good way. Because it's Pharrell. Pharrell's always been stylish. So every time
Yes.
he wears his garments, it's almost like the customers are getting like more ideas on different ways to like wear his Louis Vuitton day to day, basically. He kind of reminds me of the Marc Jacob years because Marc was so great with details that the quality sometimes wouldn't be great, but the details told so much story. Agreed. Agreed. Also, the thing about Marc Jacobs, right? Do you reckon that our expectation of Louis Vuitton is because obviously Marc Jacobs being the first ready-to-wear designer, we kind of just always compare everything we see at Louis Vuitton to what we've seen from Marc Jacobs in the past?
I don't think so. He was quite different, Marc Jacobs. He was much more fun. He didn't have that kind of approach at all. I mean, at this point, we don't compare anymore. Like, it stands by itself. Louis Vuitton, we know it's a luxury brand. I mean, we almost expect to see that image. This doesn't remind me at all of Marc Jacobs, Louis Vuitton. So for me, do you think that people do comparisons on that?
I
I don't
think
think
so
so.
because I think a big reason why Pharrell is critiqued harshly is because, well, apart from like obvious things like the lack of storytelling and stuff like that,
Yeah.
and the lack of like a multitude of silhouettes, it's to do with who has come before him. So it's like at Virgil Abloh, you would get different silhouettes. From Nicolas Gasquier, you would get different silhouettes. From Marc Jacobs, you would get different silhouettes. Even from someone like Kim Jones, who was
Mm.
doing menswear at Louis Vuitton, you would get different silhouettes. So contrasting that against Pharrell's kind of aesthetically, I wouldn't say it's mundane because I actually like what he's doing and like the quality and the craftsmanship. But I think visually it looks the most mundane out of any director that's ever been at Louis Vuitton.
Yeah. You mean in that compare in that sense that is like
Yeah,
so
yeah, yeah,
different than yeah. I mean,
yeah.
I thought you meant on like on the completely opposite, like that on similarities to compare them as if they no, exactly. Yeah, of course, it's very different, definitely.
Yeah. If there's a scale of good and bad, it exists on the neutral good because it does suffer in the creative innovation, but it does set the tone for others to be better. by being both
Yeah,
quality and
what you
creative.
said.
Agreed.
What you said.
Agreed,
Yeah.
agreed, agreed. Okay, Leo says, I do think Marc Jacobs is seen as the standard for most who end up as creative director at Louis Vuitton. Yeah, that's kind of what I would guess, just based off of the like, people have insane like, Marc Jacobs set the tone, and it feels like no one is ever going to live up to that.
Yeah, and I mean,
This is
times
kind of
have
how it
changed
is.
also. Louis Vuitton is represented very differently today than it was at the time of Marc Jacobs when they first started designing clothes.
Agreed, agreed.
And it will continue like that. It works so well for them. So we have a very that's why I told you I don't even follow the shows. Yeah, that's the reason for me, because I know more or less what I'm going to see. Besides, of course, what you said, the interesting aspects of how the bags are created and all this kind of details, which is, as a product, of course, it's important. But as you said, it's in a way mundane, some little bit mundane, yeah.
Yeah, silhouette and aesthetically, but
Yes,
there's
yes,
other like what doesn't make him mundane, because he focuses on product so much. There's like so many interesting details with what he
yes,
does, like
yes.
even like the rain techniques I was saying, like the different embroideries they've done, the different fabrics that they've used to kind of fit into the theme, how they've used those fabrics, the work that has gone into like making the sneakers and making them comfortable, but also making them lightweight, but also using really luxurious materials. I think all of that is definitely commendable.
Yeah.
So yeah. This YouTube channel runs on your support. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to my Patreon. You'll gain access to exclusive content that includes everything from my Patreon podcast, where I give a behind-the-scenes insight into the fashion industry, as well as a fashion book club, where I review my favorite fashion books. You can also check out my fashion ebook, which highlights the best fashion journalists to follow, definitions of common fashion terminology, and how to determine what a good source of fashion information is. The links to everything are in the description below.